It's time for a new project. This one's a bookcase, so I drew one up in SketchUp, and this is what I came up with. After seeing what wood I had on hand, plus the client wasn't too interested in anything quite so tall, so I got out the whiteboard and just made a quick drawing, and then just decided to start cutting down some wood I had. So this is now what I'm going for. I'll be making it out of red oak. It'll be about 3 feet high, a little less than that wide, and about 14 inches deep. It'll have a couple adjustable shelves to it, and a nice medium dark stain with a couple coats of clear finish. Now that I have the wood cut down into a more manageable sizes, it's time to get out my thickness planer, which I have on a cart on wheels, and that means I can bring it out easily enough and get it out of the way when I don't need it. During this project, I did not yet have any kind of dust collection, so I have a garbage can and a PVC pipe. I happen to have the Wen thickness planer. It comes with the spiral head, and so far I am quite happy with the results I can get from this. I started with 4/4 stock, but I'll be bringing these down to about 3/4 of an inch thick, and it looks like I need to empty the garbage can again. Next, it's over to the table saw where I attach my 4-foot level to make my fence a bit longer. This makes it easier for me to true up the sides of my now flattened boards. But as far as length and width, these boards are still only rough cut. Next, we need to take those boards and glue them into wider panels. Every piece in this project, except for some trim that you'll see later, I need to have wider, which means just gluing pieces together till you get the desired width that we need. But here again, this is all just rough measurements. I will be cutting down to the final width and length later on. After they've had at least a couple hours to dry, take them back out of the clamps, and then we can move on to the next step. This bookcase will have a total of 3 shelves. The bottom one will be fixed and in place permanently, where the other 2 will be able to be adjusted to whatever height you want. And fortunately, those 3 shelves just fit inside the width of my planer. Now everything gets an initial sanding, paying close attention to the seams where we glued the boards together. Later on, everything will get sanded again. I'll work my way up to about 220 grit. I've never seen any reason to go higher than that. That is, in most cases. If you agree or disagree, please leave me a comment on that. I'd love to hear your opinions. With the help of a crosscut sled I made, we'll cut everything down to its final length and width. Some of the dimensions I won't know until I start putting the project together. This is just a dry fit though. The 2 sides will need to have a dado put in for the bottom shelf. And yes, the DeWalt job site saw does accept dado blades. I'll leave some links in the descriptions for that. The 2 sides, bottom and top, will all need a slot for the back panel. Since 2 of the shelves are going to be adjustable, I need to put holes on the interior of the sides. Now to do this, you could spend $40, $60, or even over $100 to buy a jig. Or you could just do it for free with some scrap plywood you have laying around. And if you happen to have a small shop, it won't take up any space because when you're done with it, you just toss it out. Just determine how far apart you want your holes on the jig you make, then put that on your final piece, mark those holes, drill them out. It'll be perfect every time. To help with aligning the top to the 2 sides, I'm going to put in a few dowels. To do this, I'll use the help of one of the very few jigs I've ever bought. In fact, it might be the only jig I've ever bought. Another dry fit with the sides and the top, and a few taps of a hammer. That'll give me where I need to drill for the matching holes. These center pins sure do work great. Since this bookshelf is going to my oldest son and his family, and I want to make sure my grandchildren are safe from these sharp edges, I'll use a 3/8 inch roundover bit and my router and just kind of soften them up, and makes it look that much better. Most of my projects I put on the stain and finish before I do the final build. Because of that, I'll tape off where any glued joints will be. This will allow for a better bond between the 2 pieces of wood. When applying the stain, I like to use small circles to make sure it works in deep into the wood pores, and then smooth it out by wiping with the grain. When putting on the clear coat, I always use a brush, and I like to go across the grain because I believe that to get every ridge and valley of the grain covered thoroughly. After that, I will go back and forth with the grain to spread everything out evenly, and then finally in only one direction to make sure it's nice and smooth. Here you can see the dowels I mentioned earlier. They will indeed provide some strength to the build, but I'm mainly concerned about the alignment. As you can see, we already have the two sides and the bottom shelf permanently attached, and the back panel has been slid in place. For this glue up, I had to get out my biggest clamps, which happen to belong to my grandfather and are probably around 100 years old, but they still work great. With the bottom trim piece, I did run some tape along the edge to help with any glue squeeze out I might have. Since I didn't have enough of my grandfather's clamps, I had to put two clamps together to make it long enough. And that's how you make a bookcase.